in here?
Dang it. I chose the wrong bag.
You didn't get a cookie?
No, I got an oatmeal cookie. That
I'll
one.
trade you.
Okay, mine's on my laptop.
Do you want it right here?
No, you put it on my
Totally
laptop.
trade you.
So you have an HDMI port.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know that. No, I'm on that clicker.
Oh, I don't know how that works.
Is that DB's laptop? Hey, DB?
How does the clicker work?
How does what?
If I wanted to use
if you're a speaker or volunteer, you could probably get to your rooms. Also, if you gave a lightning talk, I need you to fill out a video release so we can archive your video. I'm sorry I forgot to do that in advance. So if you can come find me, that'd be great.
microphone's off right now.
Okay.
They need. So we're doing this microphone is for the video, and this one's for the room. So just
Okay.
hear you, the video can hear you.
So, how far away am I? I saw Molly was. Molly was having trouble hitting it.
Yeah, I mean you don't want to be too close because you're gonna get the sounds, but like
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I've been standing like this and I've
Okay.
been fine.
All right.
So
That sounds good.
it's better to stand back a bit and like project than it is to try and like lean in and get yourself really loud.
Yeah. Can I read my own slides? Yeah, not really. Wish I had better eyesight.
You can also like probably tilt it
Yeah.
if you're gonna stand over there
Yeah.
or do whatever you want. There's also
I know.
Like,
So many
I
options.
know exactly. All right.
All right. Cool. Yeah.
It would be weird. No, I'm saying like it's an example. Like, maybe not all coworkers are always like that, but like,
Andy Armstrong, UI architect, UI architect, UI. Hi. Okay, this is muted. How do I?
on the screen,
Goes to show what I know. I know nothing.
there you go. It's good. That's good. Yep, that's
Okay.
fine.
Hi. We're going to start the breakout sessions now, and we have our first speaker, Andy Armstrong. He's a UI architect at edX. Yay!
Hey, folks. How's it going? So, before I get started, I wanted to point out that all my slides were written by Brian Talbot, who was meant to be my co-presenter today. Fantastic lead designer on for edX. He can't be here, unfortunately, so I'm going to be doing his slides as well. But I really wanted to acknowledge everything that's beautiful about these slides was all Brian's work. Everything that's boring and bulleted, that's me. So what am I going to talk about? So, hi, we're Andy and Brian, minus Brian. We're UI, so I'm the UI architect for the teaching and learning team. So I joined edX a year ago. I started out as the UI architect just for Studio, and now I'm responsible for Studio and LMS. Brian is the lead designer and responsible for the UX. We really care a lot about users and interfaces, and we're both major geeks. So what am I going to cover today? So first of all, what does UI mean at edX? So UI is a very broad term. A lot of people have different senses of what we mean by that. So we're just going to very briefly talk about how we look at the world. We're going to do a couple of deep dives, not Jacques Cousteau level deep dives. We only have 20 minutes. I had a deep dive that I'm going to present on sort of the UI architecture, and then I'm going to also do Brian's talk about theming. We're then going to just talk a little bit about how you guys can help, what's happening going forward, and then we'll have a question and answer. And Brian proposed an after UI party, but we canceled it. So. Okay, so UI, 2 letters that cover a lot. So Brian was very keen to make this point that UX is not UI. UX is the user experience. It's very key to what we do. We spend a lot of our time thinking about the optimal user experience. How can we make sure that our learners are learning and that our authors are able to build the content that they need? But UI is a much broader term. If you want more details, you can go to this website, which Brian is a big fan of. But there are many things we consider. So as developers, there's a lot of things that everybody considers, not just in UI. So there's performance, there's quality, there's best practices, all of those sorts of things. And those are just as important for the UI folks as it is for everyone else here. Then there's all of the UX disciplines. There's visual aesthetics. There's the interaction standards. There's technology decisions we have to make, what libraries we're going to use. There's platform extensibility. There's all sorts of different things here. Obviously, in a 20-minute talk, I'm not going to be able to hit on all of these. So today, we're just going to talk about these 2. I'd love to talk to any of you if you're hanging around for the unconference afterwards. I'd love to talk about any of these bullets on here and what they mean to you and how we can do things better with edX for the community. But this is what we're going to focus on today. So the first deep dive, this is building new features. So I thought what I'd do is walk you through a major new feature that we added to Studio recently, some of the design decisions we made, and some of the best practices that we're going to recommend going forward. Hopefully that'll help you by sort of being an example of the way we're looking at the world now, and the way we'd like new UI to be added to edX. So I'm going to talk about the Studio Publishing UI. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the changes we made recently. I forget how long, 3 months ago, where we introduced a major revamp of the Studio UI, Publishing UI, I should say. Prior to that, Studio was very clunky, had a very difficult workflow for authors to manage. It was especially bad for people who built up a lot of content one week and then wanted to publish it for the following week, because you had to go in and individually publish every single item in your course. So one of our primary goals was really to speed up that workflow. The other big piece of feedback we'd heard a lot was it's very hard for course authors to understand what had already been published, what state was their course in, what I have some units that I made changes to, where are they? So we wanted to really focus on improving the UX, the visual appearance of this, so it was much clearer to everybody where everything was. And there were some major UI challenges with this, and that's what I'm mostly going to focus on here, is how we tackle the UI challenges. The biggest problem is we wanted to get a lot more information on the page, so we had a lot of data to get from the server, and then we had to try and keep it dynamic. And there are lots of different regions that were all sort of independent, trying to keep those in sync, and I'll talk to that. And then page performance. Performance is always a problem. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Studio and LMS are not as performant as we'd like. So we'll talk a little about that too. So for those of you who haven't seen it, maybe you're on a fork or you're not using studio.edx.org, this is the new publishing UI. So this is the course outline page, which gives you a summary of your course. You can see all of the major sections and subsections, and we introduced some color in here so you can at a glance be able to tell the blue items are complete, the yellow items have changes that have not yet been published. So I can sort of at a glance tell what do I need to do. Similarly, on the unit page, when you're editing your content, we made very similar changes here. We had this new section on the right, which shows you, using the same color scheme, what the state is of this unit. So right now, it's published and live. On the left-hand side, there's a big message at the top in black saying, be careful. This is published and it's live. So you can make any changes to this now. You really are going to be affecting your students. And then there's this unit location information on the bottom too. So all of these pieces play together. And we wanted to be able to keep this all up to date, do it efficiently, but also have a very clean UI, as you see. So what did we do? The first thing we had to do was choose the right approach. So those of you who've actually built UI for Studio or LMS know, I mean, this is Studio, they're both large Django apps. So a lot of static HTML is generated by Django views. We use Mako templates for that. So we're generating a lot of HTML, which gets downloaded to the browser. But then a lot of the content is now going to be delivered client side. So the more powerful features we add, the more those are dynamic client-side features. So we're going to be doing those in JavaScript. So there are a lot of issues with making that scale and perform correctly. So the first question then is using the right library for the job. So the edX platform has used a lot of libraries. It's one of the big sort of challenges for people picking up the platform is just how many libraries we have. And every time you turn around, there's a new library added. So one of the first decisions we talked about was libraries and frameworks. There are a lot of very good JavaScript frameworks out there now, Ember, Angular, JS, etc. A lot of us are very passionate about one or other of those, but we decided that for edX as a platform, it's really not a good idea for us to be mandating a framework. What do I mean by a framework? So a framework is something that's more opinionated. So Ember and Angular, if you're going to build an Ember app, you have to build your entire app in the Ember way. You have to structure it in a certain way. You have to expect everything to be Ember notifications. It's just, it's great if you're an Ember fan, but for the OpenEdX community, we felt that we couldn't enforce that everybody would have to use Ember or Angular. So instead, we decided to go with a library process instead. So instead of choosing frameworks, we're going to pick best-of-breed libraries. The benefit of a library is that it's not opinionated. It's there. You can call it when you need it. When you don't want to use it, you just don't call it. So it gives you hopefully a lot of the power of these frameworks, but with fewer restrictions. Yeah, so where was I going with that? So there are a number of different libraries out there, and so we've tried to pick the best of breed ones that, when plugged together, give you almost all of the features of Angular and Ember. Another thing we did as part of this rationalization was to deprecate CoffeeScript. Again, as a lot of people really like CoffeeScript, it's a nice framework, but we just found that for the community, it was too confusing to have mixtures of JavaScript and CoffeeScript everywhere. We figured it was much cleaner for people just to have one to learn and to deal with, and JavaScript really is, it is the underlying technology. It's what most of the third-party libraries you're going to be using are based on. All the debuggers think in terms of JavaScript, so it just felt to us that getting rid of CoffeeScript would just be a simplifying step for everybody. We're hoping to do similar things on the server side. We have projects going on to try and remove Ruby, for example. Just in general, trying to get to the point where you don't have to learn quite so many languages just to get going. Okay, so given that we're picking libraries, which libraries did we choose? So you're probably familiar with some of these. I mean, those of you who build UIs. jQuery, everybody uses jQuery. It's the industry standard for DOM manipulation. It gives you cross-browser support out of the box, which is just fantastic. So all of our UI has been built in jQuery, probably from the get-go. Newer for us is require.js. So it used to be that whenever all the dependencies that we needed, you just declare them statically, and then all your pages loaded all the dependencies at once. As the platform's grown, this has become more and more of a challenge for us. I don't know if you all noticed it, but the MathJax library is a particular problem at the moment, that every time you load a page, you see the MathJax loading logo at the bottom, and it's thinking and doing all this work for you. You don't even have any components that are showing MathJax. So we wanted to pick a module dependency system, and require.js is pretty much the standard for that these days. So this allows you to define your JavaScript as independent modules. They themselves can have dependencies on other modules. So you can say that I'm going to build a view. It's dependent on jQuery. It's dependent on Backbone. It's dependent on whatever pieces I'm using today. It can be dependent on other views that I've created. But each one of my views is now completely independent and can be loaded independently. And I jumped into Backbone already. So on top of, once you have the modules, we wanted a modular system for managing model view controller, model view presenter paradigms. This has been a classic UI paradigm for, I don't know, 30 years or something, probably since Smalltalk, where you want to break your UI into separate pieces that aren't also intertwined with each other. So you develop a model. So you have a model of all the data that your UI is dealing with. You have views that are going to present that data to the user. And then you have controller logic that's responsible for listening to changes to the models, updating the models, and then updating the views as well. And so we are strongly pushing now using these three libraries, jQuery, Require.js, and Backbone throughout. So we've already moved most of Studio over to using this. We're just in the process of starting to move LMS over as well. And there's a much longer term question around XBlock and how does that tie into these frameworks, which we don't have good answers for, but I would love to talk to anyone who is interested in that. So I wanted to drill more into Backbone because that's the most interesting, the most powerful piece of the framework here. So if you remember, I was showing you the unit page, and you can, I don't know if you can see these red arrows here, but this is the unit page when I have a draft. So you'll see it's in yellow. It's got the title says it's draft unpublished changes. The publish button is there. There's a preview changes button. As soon as I hit the publish button, everything switches. So we make an AJAX request to the server. That publishes it. We then ask, the server then comes back and tells us, okay, tell me all about this X block that I'm currently editing. So this unit is itself an X block. So that we get back an AJAX response that tells us this is now published. It's got the published date. So you see the published date change. The buttons are enabling and disabling dynamically. So once you've got live content, well, you can't publish it again. I mean, once you have fully published content, there's no need to publish it again. So the publish button disables. This is very difficult. It's challenging to write this kind of a UI as just a single piece of JavaScript. So the paradigm that most people use with Backbone is to break your UI up into views. So the whole page here is a Backbone view. And then each of the major sections, the publishing section on the right, the unit location, the header at the top, and the sort of editing WYSIWYG section on the left, all of those are independent Backbone views. They don't know about each other. They don't interact with each other. They all interact with a model. So we have a data model representing the X block. So it tells us the published date. It tells us all of its children. It tells us all the information that we need to render this page. And anytime we publish, we can just request it again. So we just get back that, update the data model. And immediately when the data model updates, all the views get events saying this view is updated, this model has updated, go refresh yourself. And so all of these views are just listening to these events and dynamically refreshing themselves. It makes for a much more interactive UI. A lot of the old Studio and LMS UIs, you had to do page refreshes in these situations, which are very slow, very irritating to users. So it's critical that we're doing all of this client side. So then once we've built that, we then tested it thoroughly. So we have this diff cover tool that anyone who submits PRs with is probably very familiar with. So we have a goal that all new UI goes in with 100% diff coverage. So that's very easy on the Python side. We've always had Python unit tests. It's a little bit harder in JavaScript, but Require.js and Backbone has really helped us here. Because each view is independent, you can write independent Jasmine tests for it that will test it in isolation. You don't need to load the entire page just to test that publishing component. We can send fake data we can mock data to the publishing component, make sure it reacts appropriately, make sure the buttons enable and disable correctly. And using that, we've managed to get 100% diff coverage of all of our JavaScript code that we've added. In addition, we're using bok choy library, which some of you may be familiar with. It's a library that edX has contributed to the community as well. It's designed for acceptance tests. So it automatically starts up CMS, LMS, the comment service, all the different pieces that you need. And so you can then write end-to-end tests that cover every aspect of the UI. So with all of these pieces together, we've really managed to get some very complicated UI built in the last few months, but with 100% coverage that we're very confident in. So that was a very quick dive. I hope that wasn't too fast. How can you help? Most important thing is anyone who wants to contribute UI, we have lots of guidelines out there. It's a little bit spread out right now, so I think one of the earlier talks mentioned this. It'd be really good if we consolidated and made it a bit clearer. But we have a lot of material on how do you write a pull request, and in particular, what do you need to do for a UI pull request. So that's the deep dive on, very quickly, on how we built the UI. This now is Brian's section of the talk. It's in a very different voice. This is Brian's voice. I'm not going to attempt to do Brian's voice. This is about theming. So theming has been a problem almost from the get-go. As soon as we open sourced the platform, it immediately became a problem. And there were a few innovators out there who immediately jumped on the problem. In particular, Stanford built the whole Stanford theming process, which has been fantastic for people. And Jonas has built their own alternative way of doing it as well, which is fantastic as well. And this is great. This is why we're open source. It lets the community contribute these things. But we're starting to find that it's really a challenge for everyone who's not such trailblazers. So Brian called these guys the theming turbos. What we're going to address today instead is the less tech-savvy people, the people who want to stand up Open edX, but they don't want to be doing all this complicated stuff. So our plan is to go ahead and start tackling that in the next few months and over the course of the year to provide a theming process for everybody. And this is what he called the average Joes. So has anyone here stood up in an Open edX instance? Quite a few at this point. So who's seen this as their first view? This is not what you want to see when you open up an open source project and you run it for the first time. And it's not clicking. Oh, there we go. So you'll notice all these obvious things. There's the edX logo at the top. We have edX branding in the middle. We've got all these links down the bottom for edX jobs. Do you want edX job links on your sites? I don't think so. So that's sort of like job number one, is how do we get to the point where those don't become a problem for you? Even just a color scheme. So here, the blue and the white, this is edX colors. So it's a long road. We've got a lot to do. So we're going to do a few baby steps to start with. First job, move your assets. So right now, it's clear that everything edX specific should not be in the platform. So we need to move out all of our logos and our branding. We need to get all of our organizational centric pieces moved into separate locations so that they don't pollute the platform. Same thing with global links, with any UI, anything that's edX specific should not be in the platform. So for example, Serena recently added this pull request, very simple one. You probably can't see it, but we're just standardizing where all of our images belong, and they're all going to have an edX prefix on them. Very simple, but these are sort of the first few steps that we have to make. The next step is painting by numbers. So we're going through the platform and trying to determine all the UI elements that we have so that we can standardize on branding out of the box. So, I'm going to show you very quickly how we're going to do that with the CSS, primarily through consistent naming schemes. And LMS is our primary target. So we're going to, we understand that theming of Studio is important, but for everybody, LMS is the job number one. Okay, so here are two different pages. Oops, excuse me. And you'll notice that they have very similar looks on the buttons. So the login page on the home page, and then here in the registration page, this other login page, and you'll notice the lovely login to my Your Platform Name Here account. These are all the kind of things that should come out of the box for branding. So how are we going to do that? Today, this is what the CSS looks like. You'll notice there's no commonality between the login header and the submit button. Classes are completely different. Everything is completely different. In the new world, we're going to have consistent naming conventions. The classes are all going to be the same. It's going to be a class button primary. So we want our primary buttons to always be that blue look. You might want it to be something different. It'll be standard. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip over these. Well, very briefly, We have hard-coded colors in here, blue and white. These are the edX colors. We're going to change those and have proper naming conventions so that you can drop in your own colors. And then eventually we're going to create a new theming layer so that all of your assets can be organized together and you can specify which theme you're going to be running. We realize there's going to be challenges for the, what are they called, the turbos. Those of you who are already ahead of us on this front, we're going to have to work closely with you guys and make sure that we can do it in a way that's not going to cause issues. And then after that, we've got many further steps to go. We'd love your support and help working on that. So for you theming average Joes out there, go and read up on the mailing list. There's a lot of communication already started there. With hopefully going to be a lot more. We're going to be publishing a lot of documents about theming. Get familiar with the mechanisms as we work on them, and then we'd love your feedback. And for the turbos, we really need your help working out how we can integrate what you've already got with what we have and get the best of both worlds. So then for the future, if we go back to my slides from right at the beginning, these are all our topics. I would say probably the biggest area of focus for us in the next year is thinking about the broad array of users out there and how we want to try and address them all. And that comes in many different ways. There's the global audience that we have now. So translation, we just added right to left support. We're going to keep working on that. There are some bugs, but the plan is we should be able to support any language this year. Accessibility, we have an accessibility expert joined the company, and we're working very hard to make sure that everyone with any disability is still able to learn on the platform. And then finally, the devices. It's critical for us going forward that we support tablets and phones. And so we're looking very hard at responsive designs, and we saw some talk earlier today about responsive design. So there's a lot of momentum there. So that's going to be coming up this year too. And then performance. Performance is a big problem for everybody. Even within the US, we see poor performance, but other parts of the world, China in particular, is really suffering from performance. So it's going to be a big issue for us, and we'd love to talk to you more about it. So that's it. This very brief, I only had 25 minutes, so hopefully it gives you a sense of what we're doing at edX. I would love to talk to you, any of you who are interested in particular aspects of the UI. Come up and talk to me. I'll be here all afternoon. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, thank you. Any questions? Yeah, hi. So the question was, why did we rewrite all this code rather than using an existing framework like Bootstrap? Well, I tried to explain that before. So we're not rewriting our code. So one thing I should make clear is these are aspirational goals. So as we build new UI, this is the way we're building it. We're not going through and rewriting all of our old code. We have started evaluating Bootstrap. So we're using Backbone exclusively. So we are benefiting from all the power of Backbone. We're looking at Bootstrap. It's a little opinionated. We're using it in the analytics products right now, in the insights product. And so it's something we're experimenting with. So we may be starting to use that more. Does that answer the question? Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah.
Well, there is a new UI scheme and there is an old UI scheme. Is there a migration plan of sorts that during some time the CSS will take both classes or something like this?
This is for theming? Yeah, so the question is whether there's a migration plan for theming so that we don't break everyone's existing sites by radically changing all the classes. I actually don't know the answer to that because I'm not part of the theming. That was something Brian could help you with. I'm fairly sure he's thought of that. It's very unlikely that we're going to want to break everyone's existing schemes. So I think that these will be additive. Anyone else? Okay, well, thanks very much for listening, everybody.
Oh, there's like
We have a few minutes if people want to take a quick break, walk around a little bit, and we'll be back in 10.
Should actually be open. So you want to drop mine?
Hosting courses, and we're doing everything. We're doing the content, we're building the videos, pedagogy, and the platform. All right.
Yeah, by January information. I'm not gonna go.
don't do that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diana Huang, and I'm a member of the Destination edX team. So in case you're wondering what the Destination edX team does, we are focused on the funnel. Basically, the idea of helping students find the courses they want, and then also giving us money in the process. So today, we're going to be focusing on a part of our system called the shopping cart, and sort of I'm going to try to give just a very general overview of it and sort of the technical parts of it, give a sense of the architecture. Because unfortunately right now we don't have a lot of documentation around this. And then hopefully I'll be able to give you guys an example of this in action. So starting off, what is the shopping cart? So what is it? So the shopping cart is edX's e-commerce solution for tracking orders and items and then fulfilling them for various students. Why would we need it? We are using this in a few different places already on edX.org, including professional education courses, our verified certificates product, and collecting donations from our students. So where is it in our code? It is a Django app in LMS Django Apps shopping cart. What is it made of? Like most Django apps, it's made of models, views, and templates. To start off, we're going to talk. Just going to mention the models that we use. There's order item, and then there are subclasses of order item. For example, paid course registration, certificate item, and donation. There's going to be more on this later. So another part of it is the payment processors. There's currently one API supported, and that's CyberSource Secure Acceptance. There's going to be a little bit more on that later too. And there are views. So I'm going to give you some screenshots for them. This is the general shopping cart view with one course in the shopping cart. This is the paid course registration. This is the receipt page. That's it. Basically, is a page to let the student know that they've paid and that it's successful. Okay, to dig in a little deeper, orders and order items. So basically, orders, they contain order items, and they also represent a pre-purchase cart. So when each student has a order in the cart state, and that represents the cart that has items that are added to it. When payment is received, that order transitions to purchased, and that means that the order has been completed, and that the next time they want to purchase something, it will create a new order with the status cart. Yeah, so each order is tied to a particular user. Order items, they represent specific items that the student is purchasing. It currently functions as a base class. It gives a whole bunch of useful stuff, but it must be extended to be useful as an item. So to cover a little bit more about extending order item, the one thing that you absolutely need to implement is purchase callback. This is responsible for fulfilling whatever order item, whatever the order item represents. For example, like for paid course registration, it enrolls the student in the course. For our verified certificates product, we upgrade the student to a verified track, and so on and so forth. For donations, we don't do anything because they're just giving us money. So as a convenience method that most people implement is add to order. It just basically adds a particular order item to the cart and also sets any particular useful fields on the order item. So the idea of having a subclass for order item is because we want to be able to support additional fields. For example, one of the big ones that we use a lot is course ID. If you're purchasing a particular course or a verified certificate for a particular course, you want to be able to track which course that's for. And so that's where course ID comes in. For verified certificates as well, we also keep track of what we call a mode. Basically, I'm going to cover that a little bit later, but yeah, as well as the course enrollment that you want to upgrade the student for. So one example that I'm going to talk about a lot is paid course registrations. It's basically sort of your standard what you would consider purchasing a course. This was a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about, and this one in particular was very kindly developed by Stanford and heavily used by them. So, okay, so the next sort of architectural piece is payment processors. Like I mentioned before, we only currently support one, and it's for CyberSource because that's the one we use. There's 2 files in our repository right now, which can be kind of confusing. The one that we're using primarily is CyberSource Secure Acceptance, CyberSource 2. The CyberSource without a 2 is the old hosted order page. This has been now deprecated by CyberSource, so it's probably not useful for you guys. But we'd love more. We'd love for you guys to build your own processors and contribute back, even if we're not using it. Here's basically sort of the base interface that we use the base. Take a look. You can take a look at the code and figure out how to implement it yourself. I'm not going to be able to cover that in any depth today, unfortunately. Okay, so course modes is basically allowing you to configure your courses for payment. And this is probably the trickiest thing to try to explain out loud. So what is a course mode and what does it have to do with payment? So in our system, every enrollment has a track. We call them course modes, so I'm going to probably use them a little interchangeably, and that might be a little confusing. But by default, when you enroll a student, they are enrolled in the honor track, and by default, every course, whether or not you've configured anything, will have one course mode available for it, and that is the honor code track. But the thing is, that's really nice about this, is that you can configure these course tracks and attach prices to them. The idea is that you can have courses with multiple tracks available. This is how we personally implement verified certificates. The default student experience is the honor code track, but when they go through the verified flow and purchase a certificate item, they are then upgraded to the verified track. So you can consider this sort of configuration as being able to purchase access to a particular experience within the course. So this is all kind of abstract, especially how course modes ties into everything. So I'm going to just give you sort of a very base example of how to set up your own course with paid course registration. This pretty much works out of the box right now, so there's not a whole lot. So first, you're going to need to configure your instance with a couple of specific settings, some feature flags. Make sure that enable shopping cart is turned on, and make sure enabled paid course registration is also turned on, set to true, so that you can actually see these working on site. So course modes are set up in the database. This is a screenshot of the Django admin and the configuration for a particular course. You can see that this is just a test course, and we're just setting the mode that they're going to be using to honor. It's gonna be called honor code certificate, but there's a minimum price attached to it, which is $30 in this case. You can see there's a currency field as well. This is what it'll look like, the course about page. You're probably familiar with it. The main thing to notice here is that instead of saying register for test 3, it says add test 3 to cart, and then, in parentheses, $30. And yeah, that's pretty much like all I had to do, like set up the course mode for this particular course with those settings on. So this is, I already showed you this earlier. This is what it looks like in the shopping cart. It's for course test 3. The price per student is $30. Basically, then you can hit payment, and then this is how we've configured CyberSource secure acceptance look for us. Sorry that the numbers don't quite match. I had to use a different product for this because I was setting all that other stuff up on a local dev instance and wasn't hooked up to CyberSource. But yeah, so they go through, after they hit payment, they'll end up in the payment processor. And then, after they're done paying, they'll come back and see the receipt page. And then, in this case, it'll show the course that they've enrolled in, and then there's a nice big view dashboard button. And then at the end of it, they will see, the new course. Anyway, so that was pretty much what I was going to get to. Any questions? Yes.
Yes, if you use the honor mode with a minimum price, that means there is no default rate honor mode?
Yes. Yes. Basically, to repeat the question, he was asking whether or not if you create a new course mode with the honor slug with a minimum price, does that mean that there's no course mode that's free? And that's true. Basically, if you don't have anything set up, we'll generate a mode for you, but otherwise it will use whatever you set up. For ours, we need to set up, for verified, we need to set up 2 modes, one for verified and one for honor. And the honor will have a minimum price of 0, and then the verified will have a minimum price of whatever the particular certificate costs. Yes?
How would you conduct the development?
So he was asking how you would set it up for different currencies. Basically right now we don't do anything particularly significant with the numbers that come in. We do allow you to set on the course mode a particular currency, and we'll just depending on the payment processor, we'll send that along to them, the currency that is set up for the course in the course mode.
I mean, if you have an European student, you want to pay in euro.
Okay. So asking whether or not if it's setting something up differently per student so that they can pay in their own local currency. No, we don't currently support that. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Okay, thanks. Feel free to come. These slides will be up in case you wanted them for later. Anyway, and there's my contact information.
Thank you, Diana. We're on a break until 2:20 now.
last night I got home and there was 8 minutes. So,
Hi, we have our final speaker of the day here, Carlos Andres Rocha, who's senior software engineer.
Hello, my name is Carlos. I work at the analytics group at edX, and today we're going to talk about the infrastructure we have put together to do analytics on the platform. Let me see if this works. It should work. Okay. So a few of you, I guess if you're paying attention to the mailing list, we open sourced something called edX Insights a few months ago. And we also released it on the main edX.org website. The launch was around September. Yeah, so one of the keys of Insights, I'm going to show quickly what it is. It's a website that instructors can access and look at different statistics of the courses. We have different metrics so far, like activity, enrollment. This is demographics. We have also geolocation. We have different ways to display interesting kind of facts about the things that are going on in your course. We also have activity per different like video and problems and watching the content of the course. And this is the team. This is my team, the team I work with behind this application. So we're working on this for these. We have been working on this for at least 9 months. This is the main core. We also have a lot of contributions from other teams at edX, as well as major contributions from Stanford, who is also using the same pipeline we're using. So we consider Insights to be our baby. It basically took us like 9 months to finish it or to launch. So, and it's very nice. We encourage you to give it a try if you can. However, this talk is not so much about Insights. It's more about what's inside the Insights. So we're gonna kind of go through what are the components of Insights, what it is, what are the components of the platform, how they talk to each other, what do they do, where is the code for them, and then finally, how can you get your hands on it and try to use it. So a little parenthesis there, it says, what is analytics? So Wikipedia says is the discovery and communication of meaningful patterns in data to be able to describe, predict, and improve performance. So if you ask people who use the platform, what will they use analytics for, you get different kind of answers according to who you ask. So if you ask the organizations like University of edX, they will say, well, is this cost effective? Is this actually returning the investment we're putting into it? If you ask the instructors, they will ask, how is my course doing? How are my students doing? Can I find students, for example, that are not doing that well? Course designers is a similar pattern. It's like people are having problems with detect if a group of people is having problems with a specific part of the content. And the same for students and researchers. So we have kind of multiple clients that can consume this data. And as I mentioned earlier, there's kind of, in the definition, there's kind of this allusion to a feedback loop, which is very important precisely for people who want this data so they can alter the behavior or make modifications to the product and improve performance in different metrics, either return of investment or learning or time spent on the website, different things like that. So this is kind of a sketch of the flow of data through an analytics pipeline. We start with the behavior of the user. That generates data in the platform. In our case, it's the LMS. We collect all that data. Then we have something that processes that data and extracts knowledge out of it, so aggregates. Finally, a person or a system look at that knowledge and decides to take an action that modifies the behavior. And then we just basically test again and continue doing that to improve the performance. So some of the challenges we have that are kind of particular to edX when we were designing this platform is, the first one is a scale. So the scale's at both ends, actually. So edX, as you guys know, we have millions of students right now. So we need a system that continues to grow. So we need a system that can grow as the number of people enroll, and we get more users. But at the same time, we have a lot of users of the platform that have smaller core sets, or for example, use the platform in the thousands of users. So we need also something that can scale down to certain extent. So that's why I put scales instead of just one scale. Another one is that we're committed to open source and using an open framework so people can collaborate. So the platform is open, but also the dependencies are open. So we cannot use, there is a lot of alternatives there is a lot of products for analytics that are closed source or are vendor specific, so you have to pay for. What we would like to have is something that people can take, install in their own deployments and use without, without boundaries. There's a lot of motivation behind that. For example, there's restrictions related to legislation about where data can go from their students according to the country. So we want basically to give people flexibility to manage the data themselves if they need to. Another thing we do, we kind of an agile organization, so we need to grow this pipeline incrementally. So we cannot like sit down for 6 months and think how this is going to be. Instead, we kind of have a plan, a roadmap of how things will go and start building from that. Also, as people who have worked with the code, is a lot of the infrastructures of the data, or a lot of the schemas in the data of the code are not the best. And this is because the platform grew really quickly. We very few developers at the beginning. So we're trying to, there's a lot of complexity in some places that we have to handle. And we, at some point, we're going to resolve, but in the meanwhile, we need to just be able to process that. Another requirement that is very specific is, apart from these structures to be complicated, we also need to keep supporting them or find a way to deprecate them without breaking the dependencies that people have upstream. So we normally provide all the data that the platform collects to researchers and people at different universities. So they write their own programs, and we don't want to break the efforts every time we make a change to a schema, for example. And finally, there's a lot of interest in contributing back to the platform. We need to be able to extend to in different fields. Like there's people who work in learning analytics or educational technology that want to put models into the platform so they can make automatic interventions, for example, or dynamic courses. So we need to also look towards that. This is kind of a visualization of what I mentioned earlier about building incrementally. So at every step on this pyramid, we get more value, but at the same time, it gets harder to get there. So we're kind of around here with these dashboards. We already have the systems to do collection of event aggregation, to generate some charts, and also to put them in a website. So this is kind of to get some context. So let's start drilling down. This is from like 1,000 feet above the view of the platform or the pipeline. So we have the LMS, which is receives behavior from users and generates a lot of events, are collected by the pipeline, they're crunched together, and then they're served to the applications, in this case, Insights, via query. So Insights is all the time kind of asking the results of the pipeline, give me that data. And then finally, we show that to the end user who can make actions about it. This is how it looks inside. So I'm going to do a very quick description. The arrows here are the data flow. So basically, we have something inside the LMS called data event tracking that sends events to a collector. I will go one by one after this and send that to a storage. Finally, we have a bash processor that has multiple tasks and can talk to different parts of the storage, process that data, and put them in different places according to the access pattern of the data. And then finally, we have the application, which has two layers. It has a data API, and it has the dashboard, which is what I showed earlier. So let's start with the event tracking. This is the location of the event tracking on GitHub. It's a library that allows for emission of events. It has one thing we designed it with is that it supports multiple backends. So you emit an event, but you can also configure in the platform. You make a backend for the tracker that collects events in different forms. For example, we have, I think the default trackers we have is one that writes to log files like normal event. Also another one that writes to Mongo and another one that writes to MySQL. So you can configure according to what suits you better, what way you want to store that data. It also has a nice thing that has this concept of context. So normally when you meet events in your code, you're in some very deep in the stack, and when you meet the event, you don't want to have to access information very early in the stack, for example, the request. So you can capture information as you're going deep into different parts of the stack, and when you meet the event, that information will be sent with the event, along with the event, and there's no need to pass them along. So there's kind of a state part going on there. So like I said, the LMS currently is using this heavily in basically most of the components you see on this page are instrumented and will generate an event. Sometimes multiple events. For example, there is an event generated when the person clicked on the button, then there's an event generated when the server actually got the response back from the button from a submission. Now we're gonna go to the pipeline, which is kind of the big component here. So an overview of the pipeline. The pipeline is, again, we have it here in this place. It mostly uses Hadoop and Hive, which are technologies that rely on MapReduce, which is a technology that is like 10 years old, developed initially at Google, that then became open source. It allows for using commodity hardware to process large amount of data in a kind of in a batch. Instead of processing real time, you kind of schedule, just process all this data, and it will give you a result. Currently, the way we're deploying this, so you can add machines as you need more speed or you need more capacity, and it grows almost linearly. Currently, we're using a service from Amazon called EMR. EMR is Hadoop. The only thing that facilitates for you is that you just basically click a button or make an API call, and you get your cluster right away. So in theory, everything that we do works in your own deployment of Hadoop if you want to. We just kind of, for ease operation, you use EMR. This is the repository where we have all the Ansible scripts for deploying this. I guess is again against EMR. Inside this, the first part is the collector. So at edX, we use a very simple collector. Basically, all the events are emitted to log files that get rotated, and when they finish rotating, they get pushed to a S3 bucket. There is more sophisticated techniques, and actually we're working in doing something more reliable than that. Well, reliable faster than that. Actually, there's some latency when you had to roll the logs every hour. But it works so far. There is, according to your needs, you can also change that. The only thing you have to make sure is the collector gets the data from the backend that you specify and finally puts it in a S3 bucket or the HDFS file system that you use if you're using just Hadoop outside the Amazon services. Then we have the storage. This is a very important part. It's a hybrid storage, so we have different ways to store the data. The first one is the raw. So basically, we just store all the files as they come compressed. The advantage of that is that if we make changes to the pipeline, we can always go back and replay everything that happened in the past and calculate a new value and compare to see if there's changes. So we have, everything is designed for replayability. And that's very important because a lot of what we're doing is discovering what's going on with the data and understanding the different processes that we have to go through to get the results we want. So we need to iterate a lot. So that helps us. The second one is a structured storage. And this is, at least in the current implementation, is Hive tables, which is, Hive is something that uses MapReduce to process data kind of in a very, with a syntax that's very similar to SQL. So the way it stores the data, it has its own kind of format and way to partition data. So this is very interesting because what we do, the first job that we have in the batch process, what they do is transform the raw into structured data that then you can easily query with Hive. So put a lot of effort in trying to make reasonable models that allows to slice the data in different dimensions and find interesting things. And finally, we have the results store. Results store currently is a MySQL database. And this is where we put, so Hive has an issue, which is it relies on Hadoop, which has high latency. You need like a job that takes like 10 minutes to finish or 15 minutes to finish. So what we do is we calculate kind of aggregated results and we put it here in MySQL. So they can be accessed a lot quicker than triggering the whole dispatch of a Hadoop job. This is the final part here is the batch process. So like I said earlier, it supports Hadoop and Hive queries. Everything inside there is divided by task that can be connected one to the other. So I'm not going to go through the code, but the way you specify a task, we're using this framework called Luigi by Spotify. You specify, this is my task, this is the data it requires, and this is the data it produces. And then another task can say, oh, I depend on that data that is created by that task. So it's very easy. You can start the job very, very late in the pipeline, and it will figure out if the data was already computed or not. And if not, then it will run those tasks before running the one you want. If it's already computed, then it will just run the process you want. So it's a way to kind of structure the pipeline. And yeah, it's also in Python, so it's also kind of the language we have inside the company in edX, right? Another kind of extra functionality is that for doing, we have a lot of data in the databases. Sometimes queries take a lot of time. So what we do, we use a project called Apache Scoop to get the data from the SQL databases, from my SQL databases on the website, put it inside the structure or raw storage, and then run aggregation processes on that. So it's not it's part of the pipeline, it's a functionality that is there. Finally, we have the application side. So on the application side, there's two components. One is the data API. This is a very small app that basically just triggers queries to REST endpoints and uses coming from the results store in the pipeline. Right now, it's uses authentication by secret keys. And the benefit of having this here is that we can have multiple applications consuming the data from the pipeline. Not just the dashboard that you guys saw, but also different parts of the LMS or by reports that get to executives or things like that. So one example of that is one of the contributors, one of the projects that Stanford has been working on is to include, for example, answer distributions inside the LMS. So what they're doing is instead of showing the results in Insights, they're doing that in the LMS, and they've got a component that talks to the data API and shows that to instructors right there. So the code is there. We're trying to make it, combine it, merge it together. So the final component is the dashboard. Oh, a little thing I forgot to mention. There is a small client that we wrote to make it easier to make these REST calls. So instead of making the whole REST call, you just call something .enrollments and the name of the course and make it very, very easy. Finally is the dashboard. This is an application that, so everything that I mentioned so far is independent on the main edX code base, and that's very important because it gives a lot of flexibility to start things from scratch, from new, and do a lot of, take a lot of the experience that we have accumulated over the last couple of years developing the main edX platform and put it to use here. So we have, it's a kind of a modern Django application. It has very good internalization and accessibility. So Mark Stedecki, who works at edX, is an expert in accessibility, and he has done an amazing job in making this accessible to hearing impaired people. He even has some project making the graphs accessible to people, which is actually pretty cool. I guess Andy mentioned this early. This one, instead of using kind of home cooked CSS, we use Bootstrap. We use Gulp to manage all the dependencies that JavaScript has. And for plotting, we use D3 and MBD3. The other interesting thing about this application is that it's not connected to the databases of the LMS. So authentication is done using something called OpenID Connect, which is kind of a version of Auth2 that is becoming a little bit popular. So Google now supports it. It's actually the default now. And the cool thing is lets you transmit, it defines the standards of how to transmit information about the user that is authenticating against to the client or receiver. So it's also, this is another project. I forgot to put the URL, but I should have put it. It's also in the edX space. So if you look for OAuth provider, that's the one. Also, we have test coverage on both the backend and the front end. I think our numbers are in the 97%. So I guess this is really good. Another advantage that having a separate code base gives us is that we can deploy independently. So we don't have to coordinate with the rest of the platform to release everything. Just deploy whenever we have things ready. Well, this is just to take a look again at the Insights product. Again, the pipeline. Finally, I'm going to talk a little bit about the roadmap. What is the next thing we're doing? So you get an idea. So coming, I guess, in this few months is going to be statistics per prompts, which is something we're currently working, and Stanford already has some work done in that direction. We're also working in tools for doing data quality assurance. So sometimes one of the things that for us is hard is to validate results sometimes because we make a new task, and how do we know we're doing the right thing? So it's putting things, a series of tasks in different parts of the pipeline to let us kind of measure, like, gosh, how are things going, and tell alerts and things like that when things drop. And we're also starting to work on extension points. So now, if you want to use the pipeline, you have to write a widget task, which is very low level. You have to write MapReduce. It's fairly low level. It's not as low level as writing the Java, but it's kind of close. So we're working on an API that at least will let you write your own jobs and maybe publish them, and so people can use them. Either we include them in the main stack, or you can, the same way we use Xbox, you can just publish it in a repo, import it, install it, and run it. And the other big part is that this intermediate storage that we have, the structured tables here, we want to make them public, so you can write jobs that consume those models, knowing you already know what intermediate data is there. So it can be different definitions, so different structures. For the future, we want, one of the things we're working on, there's a few things, but the only one I want to mention here is moving towards a stream processing, which is basically being able to do update computations or aggregations in real time. So this is what you see here is what people normally call like a Lambda architecture, if you look at different pipelines. So we're exploring different technologies for doing that. There's also the possibility of merging these two. So this is something that currently is on the design stage. The other thing we want to do is also provide extension points for the other parts of the application. So we want to people to be able to put their own plots into Insights the same way you can an exploit in the courseware, and also provide their own kind of data market or data services. So those are things I'm currently working on. One of the things we being kind of very honest right now, we have focused really into getting this running. We need to do a lot more work to get this, to make it easy to deploy and use in different scenarios. So to get there, we really need your help to get it there faster. So there's things you can do right now. We don't have integration with DevStack for most of the stack, but there's a few things that are already there, like Insights, but not the pipeline. So if you want to collaborate, if you want to kind of get your hands dirty and look at the stuff we're working on, that would be a great place to start. Tutorials is also something that will be really, really useful. Making the system that we have, the scripts and configuration, independent of Elastic MapReduce will be great, the Amazon service, so people can deploy it in their own instances. Working on the authentication for the data API, that's also kind of low-hanging fruit that people can start doing. Helping us with teaming in the dashboard, although we have some there, it's not yet where we want, and making it responsible in devices. And then working on ways to actually embed visualization or be able to share visualization across different, between Insights installations. I think that's it. Questions here or later, or you can reach me after we finish and ask me something.
I would say just that
the comment was that if all these points that are listed here, I think making a point that these two are the most important to actually be able to go forward. And I think you're right, yeah. So we really need your help here. Right. Okay. No, that's a good point. We know that, so that's why we put it there.
In the absence of tutorials right now, if I'm writing an Xbox, I would like to be able to admit events. What's the best resource I have?
So Xblocks have an interface currently. I think it's the publish method that you can publish interface. We also have there is also a website that you can see the current format of events.
Yeah, so
Right.
Xbox publish
Right.
is a thing that emits.
Yeah, that emits to the pipeline. Now, it's not a guarantee that in the next few months that's not going to change. It may change because we're kind of trying to work how services work into Xbox, but that's the current way. So we'll keep you updated if that's going to change or not. But just kind of a heads up that may change. Anything else?
Maybe one question about the size of this. Of course, edX is a huge installation against everything else.
Mhm.
But if you're running, as we are running a smaller installation, what could we expect with this? Something we could get to use?
I think so. So that's why we need a little bit of collaboration. Hadoop scales from 1 to infinite nodes, right? So we should be able to run the whole thing in one node, for example, if that's all you need. Yeah, what we need is the configurations to work to support that. That's basically why we decided to use that technology, because it scales up and down in a way. So, anything else? All right, so this is my contact information, copy of the slides. Also, if you have questions, there is the mailing list that we monitor constantly. And if you want to talk after, I'm very open. So thanks.
Thank you, Carlos, and thanks to all of our speakers here today. Yeah. At 3 p.m., we're going to have closing remarks, and then we have some unconference time, so I hope you all stick around.
Okay. When you talk, you can stand back here. You don't have to get too close. What am I? That's very. What am I doing here? This is. I don't need this screen at all. I need this screen. And we do have him there, ready to go.
All right. We have critical mass. What time is it?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to get our closing remarks started.
Yo, everyone, sit down.
Yo, everybody sit down, as Ned says. Okay, so an exciting announcement was made today that we thought we'd share with you. This doesn't affect everybody, but it affects us a lot, and we're very excited to share it with you. President Obama announced today that edX has joined with Connect Ed. It's a Department of Education initiative to empower teachers to use technology in the classroom. So we're sitting side by side with some of the giants of technology in this announcement, and it's a pretty big deal.
I don't know if the audio is going up there.
Hold on. As part of edX's participation, and this is the part that we feel especially excited about announcing because it's another one of these gifts that we get to give, and I'm sure a lot of baggage will come with it, but here it goes. Students in high need and rural schools around the country will also be able to earn free verified certificates in any of the more than 40 courses and modules that edX University partners are developing. It's prep for AP exams. So those are for free for 5 years. So that's a very big deal. It gives a lot more credential granting power to those, it gives it to the students. And that's really something that we want to be able to say that we do, is that we actually move these social good causes forward. It's a big part of our mission to increase access. And so this is a great announcement by our team and by the president. So Ned theoretically has this all wired up to play the exact moment when Obama says the word edX. Go, Ned.
Ooh.
So today I'm proud to announce that 2 companies that provide online courses are getting on board.
Hold on a moment.
edX has already offered its advanced class. That's making the certification for those courses free as well. So if you're a student who's mastered the material but can't afford the certification that proves it, edX will provide it. We're offering more than a dozen training courses to teachers nationwide for free.
And he goes on to mention some people we don't care as much about. And
Talk about some other companies.
Nah. Anyway, and then I think, is there Ned has some other stuff.
Okay. All right, so that was very exciting. The whole office back on the other side of Cambridge was abuzz with this today. Our own Becky, who was handling a lot of the logistics, was also helping out with getting the word out about Obama, so it was a big day for Becky. But so, closing remarks. So the Open edX conference. Let me just start by saying that the thing we're going to do from when I stop talking till 5 is an unconference. And what I mean by that is that we're going to self-organize into clumps of interest. And I'm telling you that now because you need to think about coming up here 5 minutes from now when I tell you to and saying what group you are hoping to lead. So if you are very interested in running courses on Croatia and want to get other people interested in that, you can say, I'm going to sit over at that table and talk about Croatia, or whatever your topic is. And I'm figuring we'll probably have a dozen or so of these kinds of clumps happening, and we can find spaces in here and talk. But let me start by saying thank you to all of you. You have done an amazing thing, which is you have convinced me that it is possible for us to run a conference that is not a total disaster. As Serena can tell you, 2 days ago, no one could convince me of that. So thank you. And thank you, of course, for being so engaged in this effort of ours to make Open edX a thriving open source community, that you've been willing to come and travel as far as you have and give up time on your own efforts and your own families and your own homes to be here with us and make this happen. And I'm really looking forward to the energy that came together in this room, going back out into the world and making the community grow even larger. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. We want you to stay in touch. We have a number of channels for you to do that, all of which are linked from openedx.org. There's mailing lists, there's RFC channels, there's mailing to us directly, though we'd rather have the conversations out in the open on the mailing list. All the slides and videos from this conference that we can collect together will be put up on con.openedx.org. We'll be keeping that site going as a way to keep the materials going. If you are a speaker and have not yet given us your presentations, expect to get an email from us asking for them, because we'd really like to get all of the stuff together. We've recorded all of the presentations, and they will be available on the YouTube channel. We really want to hear from you to let us know what you want to see in Open edX. And we really want to hear from you to let us know what you want to build. And I say that not because I'm hoping to turn this into the classic open source, you are our outsourcing and you're going to do all the work for us. What I mean is, if you have an idea and you want to build it, talk to us as soon as possible. We want to make sure that you have a smooth road onto our platform, a way for your code to come in well. We want to connect you up with other people who have similar interests, and I'm really hoping that the unconference time is a place where similar interests can come together and make concrete plans for how to work together after the conference. But if you are thinking of building something, or if you have built something and you want to get it into platform, please come and talk to us. As we said in the opening session, we know that it is still difficult to contribute, but talking together is going to be the best way to make it easier to contribute. So please come and tell us what you want to build. We are running a hackathon tomorrow and Friday at the edX offices on the MIT side of Cambridge at 141 Portland Street. It starts tomorrow at 8 a.m. with breakfast from 8 to 9, and then an actual pitch, not a pitch session exactly, but an organization session where people say what project they're working on and find space to sit down and then get started. So 9 o'clock, we will be having an actual everyone stand together and talk about the projects that we're working on so that we can self-organize and get started. If you are in doubt about coming to the hackathon, please know that although it's called a hackathon and we'd love to see code produced, we aren't expecting that everyone's going to be writing code that's going to be done in a day and a half. If you just have an idea that you want to sketch out with our UX designers, or if you have an idea that you want to contribute and you'd really like to talk to a product manager and figure out what the roadmap looks like and where it can best fit in, the hackathon's a great place to do that. If you want to write docs, if you want to fix typos, if you want to do anything that can contribute to the progress of the platform, the hackathon's a great place to do it. So even if you can't write code, you're perfectly welcome at the hackathon. If you don't have a sticker on the back of your badge, I'm an ex-employee, but if you have signed up for a hackathon, you have a sticker on the back of your badge that says hackathon attendee. If you don't have one of those and want to attend the hackathon, what do? Talk to Serena. Find Serena if you haven't already, exactly. Also, if you do have a sticker and it turns out you're not attending, let us know just so that we can keep the lists and RSVPs and food count right. Anything else? Did I cover all that? Good.
I have one of
Oh,
sorry.
Beth.
I meant to say it before. Just a quick thank you to Extension Engine, who are our partners in trying to pull together some of the materials and the website and a lot of the other things for this conference. They were our eager partners in trying to do this work together, and we really appreciate their help. So just a quick thank you to Extension Engine. I forgot to do that before.
Okay, who wants to say what they're going to do at the unconference? I can start because no one is here yet. Beth, or you're going to steal my thunder and say what we're doing together. Go ahead.
I don't know. What do you do?
Let's see.
This ought to be good. Sorry. We're doing LTI.
Beth's doing LTI. So what I would like to talk about governance. So if you want to talk to me about governance and what you're concerned about and what ideas you have about it, I will be sitting way over in that corner to talk about it.
All right, now we are actually doing different things. I'm going to be meeting with the already formed Campus Applications Working Group. We do happen to be talking about LTI right now because that's our in-progress work. So if anybody's interested in LTI, even just to sit and listen and figure out what the heck we're doing, you can join us down front here. We will be in this front corner of the room convening about LTI. And I will have to actually apparently go between these two activities.
Two tables together if you want. Does anyone have anything? Good. Come on up. Or shout it from there and I'll repeat it. Does anyone else going to want to come up? Marco, you can. Okay, anyone else? No one else? Come on.
Hi there. I'm Stephen Vergens from Advanced Distributed Learning. We're the ones responsible for SCORM, the Experience API, and also known as Tin Can previously. If there is interest in getting those integrated into edX, I know we would certainly like that. If anyone has any projects that wants to tie into that, get with me and we'll talk about implementation plans. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nate. If you are trying to get edX up and running, or you have got it up and running and want to help other people get it up and running, I'd like to lead a session to talk about better OpenEdX hosting options. So not just Amazon, but Google Cloud, OpenStack, Docker, you name it. Let's try to get it running. Thanks.
Pick a place.
Oh, do I need to say where I'm meeting?
By that guy.
By the piano. By the piano.
Hi, Marco. I'd love to chat with people interested in exploring what other kinds of navigational structures should exist in the LMS beyond just linear sequences of content. So I would love sort of sketches and discussions and sort of feedback on what we're thinking about. So I will be somewhere there.
Marco, what's your role in the community?
I'm a member of the edX team. I'm a designer on the product team.
Marco is amazing with a marker. He's marker Marco.
So as Ned mentioned, we've got an unknown number of OpenEdX installations with an unknown number of students with a mathematically unquantifiable number of courses. And what would be nice is if these edX installations could in some way support each other. If you have a course on yours and I want to use on a different one, can that happen? Can they, if I finish some content on your installation, can that support your installation? Can they talk to a common mobile app? Can they, I don't know what this is. This is a brainstorming session to figure out, is there a way we can create a network where all of the OpenEdX installs that want to can in some ways either support each other, share information, advertise, SEO, whatever else. OpenEdX network. Where?
Where? I don't know. You're going to be over in that corner all the way over there.
By the clock.
By the clock. Danny, you coming up?
I'm Dan Hickey from Indiana University. If anybody's interested in digital badges and us possibly helping you get digital badges up and running in your courses, we'll be over in the back corner. Also interested, anybody who's interested in sort of discussion-based and interactive sort of resources within courses. We didn't talk about that much here, but that's a big interest of mine. So I'd like to hear about that from anybody. And if nobody comes, I'll go hang out with Marco.
All right, if that's it, the rest, everyone else is welcome to either find one of those groups or just sit and chat and mingle, whatever you want to do. So that is all I have to say. Let the unconferencing begin, and thank you all so much for being here. Oh, great. That's very thoughtful. Thank you.